particular example is something that we've already seen, the tree and the house example, which I've already told. That is what this is about. Then the analysis. So before that, I want you to recall the definition of contract of indemnity. So what is the section number of contract of indemnity? Section 124. Very good. So can you tell the definition out with me? Contract of indemnity can be, as per section 124 of the Indian Contract Act of 1872, clearly states that it is a promise that is being made by one person to another to indemnify the loss that is being suffered by another caused due to the conduct of the promiser or any other person. Okay, well done, you said it with me. Okay, okay, so that is the important thing. So the analysis is also saying the same thing. It is to make good the loss that is being suffered by another person, and under the contract of indemnity the existence of loss is essential. Definitely there should be a loss that should be in existence. If for example there are two persons, like I told, right, A is there and there is B. Okay, so definitely B should have incurred a loss. If in the absence of B's loss, there definitely wouldn't be any liability for A, right? The liability of A totally depends upon the loss that is being suffered by Mr. B. So the existence of loss is very much crucial. That is what they're trying to say. Okay? Okay. So the next thing that they're saying is, unless the promisee has suffered a loss, he cannot hold the promiser liable for the contract of indemnity. Okay. So this is what they're saying. Then after that, these 2 points you would be very much familiar, that the because of the conduct of the promiser himself or by the conduct of any other person, if the person is facing a loss, that only is subject to contract of indemnity. This is a very important thing. The loss that has been occasioned by an accident, not caused by any person, or an act of God, natural event is not covered in the contract of indemnity. Because of your prayer yesterday, something has happened today, a reversal effect has happened, some loss you have incurred, that cannot be subject to the contract of indemnity. Okay, that is very important. Okay. So what is the modes of contract of indemnity? There are different modes in which the contract of indemnity can be carried out. See, every contract that is legally enforceable by law will definitely have two different types of modes in which they can be told. Either it can be expressed or it can be implied. Okay, expressed or implied. So if in case, if you're saying that the particular contract is expressed, okay, how do you say it? How do you say it is what we're going to discuss now. Okay, see, a contract of indemnity is said to be expressed when a person expressly promises to compensate another from the loss. So, if in case I'm expressly saying, okay, Mr. X or whomsoever it is, I will definitely indemnify you or compensate you for the loss you are going to suffer. Okay, expressly by word of mouth, I'm telling him, or by writing also, I've told him. Then, what is the contract of indemnity that has been implied? Implied is when it has been inferred from the conduct of the parties or from the circumstances of the case. Okay, so there are 2 points here. What are they? If it is been inferred from the if it has been inferred from the conduct of the parties or from the circumstances of the case, conduct of the party or circumstances of the case, then in such a case this is said to be implied. What is implied, guys? Implied is nothing but it is inferred from the conduct of the parties, conduct between the parties, that is Mr. A, Mr. B is there, right? So the conduct between the parties, if it has been inferred, or by the way of from the circumstances of the case. Okay, circumstances of the case, then in such a case it could be understood. Okay, inferred from the conduct of the parties and the circumstances of the case. Okay, this is a very important line that is to be remembered. Okay, okay. So the next thing that they're saying, the contract of indemnity is like any other contract, just like your any other contract, it is there. So it has to fulfill the 10 conditions. You remember in foundation, go back and refer the book, or I will be taking you through this. Okay, so just recall it from your memory. Offer and acceptance, there should be an offer, there should be an acceptance. Then intention to create a legal obligation, this we have studied in the initial stage. There should be a consideration. Then competency of the parties, that is they should be a major. Then definitely they should have the capacity to contract and all of that. Then the free consent, both the parties should have free consent about the matter that is subject to the contract. Then lawful objective, only lawful objective, smuggling and all you cannot bring it. Then after that, agreement should be expressly declared, expressly declared to be void. Example, an agreement in restraint of trade and marriage, etc. You would have read it in your foundation level. Then the terms of the agreement is not being vague or uncertain. Vague in the sense it's not clear. Things like that. Okay, I think you're very clear about it. Then the next thing we'll see. So the there's a continuation of it. which clearly states that the agreement must be capable of performance. Definitely, there should be performance by both the parties to the contract. Should not be void. Legal formalities should be complied with and all of that. Okay, let's read the example. A asks B to beat C. So poor guy. Okay, promising to indemnify him against the consequences. The promise of A cannot be enforced because suppose B beats C and is fined 1,000 rupees. B cannot claim the amount from A because the object of the agreement itself is unlawful. You're telling your friend, Dede, go and beat my enemy. I'll give you 1,000 rupees. I will indemnify you for whatever loss that you will be incurring. Okay, you're telling your friend, go and beat my enemy. Whatever fine you have to pay to the institute or whatever fine you have to pay to the college or school, whatever, I will I will give you that fine amount, like that. I'm promising you. So because of which you went and bet my enemy. What happens? Suddenly the institute is calling and asking you to pay a fine. So this particular fine, should I be able to indemnify you? Definitely no, because because the object of the particular contract itself is unlawful, right? You are going and beating someone, for that I'm giving you money. Is that even lawful? No, it's not lawful, and it is not subject to a contract of indemnity as well. Okay. So the contract of fire insurance, very important. The contract of fire insurance and marine insurance is always a contract of indemnity. See, contract of insurance is always a contract of indemnity. And also, you would have learned in foundation there is something called as quasi contracts. If you can recall that, it is very much similar to quasi contracts. Okay, so but the contract of fire insurance or marine insurance is always a contract of indemnity. Okay, but there is no contract of indemnity in the case of contract of life insurance. One mark. Okay, so fire insurance and marine insurance is something that is contract of indemnity. Life insurance, if you take, it is not a, I'm sorry, one second. Okay, fire insurance and marine insurance are there, right? That is a contract of indemnity. But in the case of life insurance, it is not a contract of indemnity. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, because life insurance, like, see, it is dependent upon an uncertain event that is going to occur sometime in future. How could you go in for giving an indemnity for that, right? Like we had already discussed, is a natural event, right? So that is something. Insurance is something that is being, life insurance is something that is given against an uncertain event that is going to occur in future, right? So because of which this life insurance will not be covered. Then the rights of the indemnity holder. Who, Mr.? Rights of whom? Very good. Indemnity holder, Mr. B, who has faced the loss. So, what is the rights that the particular indemnity holder, when sued, will have? Okay, section 125. So, the promisee in a contract of indemnity. Okay, the promisee. Promisee is a person. Who is a promisee? Okay. See, the promisee is in the contract of indemnity, acting upon the scope of his authority, is entitled to recover from the promiser, uh, or indemnified. Okay. So what and all he can recover? So he can recover all the damages. He can see there are three different things that he can definitely recover. So what are the three different types of things that he can recover? He can recover the damages. I'm sorry. One second. Odd. He can recover the damages. He can recover the damages. Okay, I'm not able to write because I don't have a stylus. Writing it by my hand. So there are damages. Okay, damages. Okay, any damages or that has been incurred by him, all the damages, which may be compelled to be paid in the lawsuit in respect of any matters to which the promisee to indemnify applies. Okay, to which the promise to indemnify applies to. Okay, all the damages which may be compelled to be paid in a lawsuit in respect of any matter to which the promisee to indemnify applies. Okay, then after that, all the cost which may be compelled to be paid. Okay, all the cost, all the damages, all the cost that has been compelled to be paid in a lawsuit, if in bringing or defending it he did not contravene to the orders of the promisor and acted as if it would be prudent for him to act in the absence of any contract of indemnity, or the promisor authorized him to bring and defend the suit. So see, if in case there is any type of cost of different types of suits, okay, if you file a court case, okay, the different types of cost that you have to incur in respect of that particular cost in respect of lawsuit, right? So cost of lawsuit, right? Cost of lawsuit also when it should be can be recovered from the indemnifier. Okay. Then all the sum of money which may be paid under the terms of any compromise. Okay, any sum which he may have to pay under the terms of compromise or any such suit if the compromise was contrary to the orders of the promisor. If the compromise was not contrary to the orders of the promisor and was one which it would have been prudent for the promisee to make in the absence of any contract of indemnity, or if the promisor authorized him to compromise the suit. Okay, so see, there are three different things that you should remember. Okay, if in case there are three different types of rights that the indemnify that is the indemnity holder can exercise against the indemnified. Okay, so what are the three? Any damages that he has to incur, either any damages or that he has to incur in the case of this particular loss or damage, everything is the same. He has the right to recover the damages, he has a right to recover the cost on any lawsuit, and he also has the right to recover what? Recover any sum that has been paid in respect of any compromise he has been making. Okay, if in case there is no contract of indemnity, you have to definitely make a compromise because of which you have paid some money. Say for example, you're going on the road, you are going in your bike and you hit the person in front of you, and that particular person, what he'll do, he'll be quiet. He'll come out and ask you the money, right? Give me the money. You had hit my vehicle. Definitely, you have to pay me. So, in order to compromise that particular person, you pay a certain amount of money, right? So that particular money also can be recovered from the indemnifier. Okay, indemnifier. Okay, so that is the most important thing. So the right to sue for damages, he has a right to sue for the cost of suits, and he also has a right to claim for any amount that is being paid under a compromise. Okay, any amount that is being paid under a compromise, any right to sue for damages, and also has a right to sue for cost of suits. Okay, that is a very important thing. So all of this relates to that. Let's give it a quick reading. Okay, see, we understand that from the above provisions that the contract of indemnity, the promisee, that is the indemnity holder acting within the scope of the authority, is entitled to recover from the promisor or the indemnified the following rights. Okay, so all damages, all the cost. Okay, all the cost at which he is compelled to pay, which he is compelled to pay. Okay, if he is compelled to pay, if the who is compelled to pay, the indemnity holder is compelled to pay under in a suit or bringing or defending the suit. Okay, bringing and defending the suit, or any sum of money that is required, he may have paid under the terms of the compromise. Okay, of the lawsuit. So three things. So it may be understood that the rights of the rights contemplated under section 125 are not exhaustive in nature. So it is not exhaustive. Inclusive definition, exhaustive definition, you know that, right? Inclusive means this is the end, that's all these components only would be there. Okay, if in case exhaustive means etc etc, you put right in the example etc etc, likewise. Okay, so this is the thing. Yeah, next thing will go, right? Okay, then mentioned above. So if in case he has incurred a liability and the liability is absolute, the liability is what? The liability is what? Absolute liability. And he is entitled to call upon the indemnifier to save him from the liability and pay it off. Okay. Please note that the Indian Contract Act is silent about the rights which the indemnifier has on carrying out the promise to indemnify. Okay. But they are similar to the rights of the surety under the section 141 of the Indian Contract Act. Okay. So when does the liability of an indemnified commence? Okay, when does the liability of an indemnifier commence? When does this particular poor Mr. A has to start indemnifying Mr. B? Okay, that is what we're going to discuss now. So although the Indian Contract Act, okay, although the Indian Contract Act, see, although let's change this color. See, although the Indian Contract Act of 1872 is silent on the time of commencement of the liability of the indemnifier, however, on the basis of the judicial pronouncements, it can be understood as stated that the liability of the indemnifier commences as soon as the liability of the indemnity holder becomes absolute and certain. So, liability of whom? Liability of Mr. Mr. B commences, that is, a loss has incurred as soon as the liability of the particular indemnified holder becomes absolute and plus certain. That's when the liability of Mr. A will start. Okay, the liability of Mr. B, that is the liability or the loss or the damage of Mr. B, that is the indemnity holder, becomes absolute and certain. That minute itself, the liability of Mr. A will start to commence. Okay, so that is what they're saying here. Okay, so this principle has been followed in the courts, has been followed in the course of several cases. So A promises to compensate X for any loss that he may be suffered by fulfilling the suit against Y. The court order X to pay Y the damages of 10,000 rupees. Okay, the A promises to compensate Y X against any loss that he may suffer by fulfilling the suit against Y. Okay, so the court may orders X to pay Y damages of 10,000 rupees. As the loss has become certain, X may claim the amount of loss from A and pass it to Y. Very clear, right? You can give it a reading once more if you want. I can explain it. There's a person who is A. I'm sorry, 1 second. There's a person A, already A is here. So this particular A has promised what? Has promised Mr. X. Mr. X what? Is promised X for a loss that he may suffer by filing a court case against Y. He's filing a court suit against whom? He's filing a suit against Mr. Y. Okay, Mr. Y, he is filing a suit. On account of filing this particular suit, Mr. X is going to incur a liability of 10,000 rupees. 10,000 rupees. 10,000 rupees he has to remit as a way of a fine or loss or whatever it is. Okay, because of filing this particular lawsuit, he is going to incur a liability of 10,000 rupees. So this 10,000 rupees can be indemnified by Mr. A. So just that the amount is become certain and absolute, it is time for Mr. A to take up the liability. Okay, that is what they're saying. Okay, very nice. So, okay, I hope that all of us have understood indemnity very well, as much as clear as possible. Then the next one is, next part of the Indian Contract Act is the contract of guarantee. So, what is a contract of guarantee? The contract of guarantee is a type of a contract. So, it's also a contract only. Contract means what? Enforceable by law. What is a contract? It is enforceable by law, right? Enforceable by law. Okay. So the contract of indemnity, there are three different persons. You always have to remember this triangle, which I'm going to draw now. So there is a triangle. Okay. So let's see, or let me. Okay. So in respect of contract of guarantee, always you should remember one triangle, which I'm going to teach you now.